Being a UFO investigator and researcher, you never really quite know what might come your way. A while ago, I was approached by a friend. He asked me if I would come and interview his father. I said I would do that for him, and I wondered why that was the situation. Why was he asking me to come and do an interview with his father? It turns out that his father is fairly ill and in his later years. Sometimes we procrastinate more than we should. But then again, sometimes we don't see what's coming. I'm glad we finally sat down with Doug. As I've said before, you never know what you're really getting into sometimes, and this story became much bigger than I ever expected.
Hey folks, welcome again to VUFOA-TV. We've got an interesting article that we're going to bring you this week. An interview with a chap who's had many experiences through his life and a lot that can't be explained. So we'd like to introduce you now to Doug. Hi Doug, how are you today?
I'm good, thanks.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Now I believe that many years ago some things happened that you can't explain.
And still can't.
And still can't,
yeah.
Okay. And there was quite a few different occasions when things were happening, and they're all similar to each other, but different in different ways. So
yeah, that sort of happened in Stephen's teen years.
Yep.
And so I'm going back a hell of a lot of time too.
Okay. So what are we talking here? The 1970s?
Yeah, round about, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Steve would have been, what, 14, 15? Yeah.
Okay.
And, but there was one time in particular that I do recall that Steve come very excited out of bed. He woke.
Okay, yep. This is late at night?
And he ran into mum and dad, like,
yep.
doing them, and myself. And I just got up to give them all a group hug because I sensed trouble, if you like.
Right. So what happened was, just so I understand, Stephen jumped out of bed. Yep. And then come running into you.
Yeah.
And he seemed upset and scared.
And yeah, he seemed very upset.
Yep.
And I wouldn't let him go. But he broke my hold that I had on him.
Yep.
And he ran out into his bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the back door.
Yep.
And he wanted to get out into the backyard, right or wrong.
Okay.
Because as I found out later, he could see lights. I couldn't.
Lights like shining down from somewhere? Or?
Shining down from somewhere, I don't know where.
Okay.
But we went out there.
Well, you didn't see the lights, I believe?
No, I was stumbling about in the dark. So I turned the light on. And I got him back in the bed and soothed him a little bit.
Yep.
If you like.
Mm-hmm. Calmed him down a bit.
Yeah, calmed him down.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why, but I felt something then. I don't know what I felt. And then I went, back inside.
So it was a bit of maybe a bit of confusion in your mind about what had happened and what was wrong with Stephen at the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What made him so excited? What would make him so excited to,
Yep.
to get him out of bed and run into
So at this point, Stephen hadn't actually said anything to you about anything, or
No,
no? So it's just more the emotional side.
that's correct. Yeah,
Mm, okay.
yeah.
This is when you were living in Heidelberg, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
West
okay.
Heidelberg. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There was a I'm not sure whether I've got the order correct, but 3 or 4 things happened that I can't explain.
Yep.
So I saw Dawn unbothered, or seemingly unbothered.
Yep.
And watching television.
So you've put Stephen now back to bed.
Yep.
And then you've gone back into the lounge room.
Yep.
And then you've seen your wife seeming to be, as you said, unbothered, as in like just staring, or.
Yeah. Just looking toward the TV.
Okay. So watching TV. Or.
But as I got closer,
Mm,
as I got closer to her from Stephen,
yep.
she was sat bolt upright,
Mm-hmm.
and she wasn't looking at the TV at all.
Okay.
She was just staring at the wall,
Like a trance.
Yeah.
Okay.
like as though she shouldn't have been there.
Yeah. Right. Okay. As in like disorientated, maybe, or more like staring through the wall.
Staring through the wall, I think.
Okay.
Not
Like she could see something
disorientated.
beyond the
Not
wall.
disorientated because she'll be able to speak.
Yep.
I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I ran my hand down in front of her eyes.
Yep.
And that didn't work.
So she continued to just
So-
stare straight ahead.
So I walked on the other side of her,
Yep.
and did the same thing again.
Mm-hmm.
And that didn't seem to work. So I held her hand, and slowly she came out of it. She came out of it in around about 15 minutes.
Yep.
And I thought, what the hell is going on here?
Mm-hmm.
Something is not as it should be.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
And even to this day, she gets so annoyed if you try to talk to her about it.
Okay. So it's possible that she has some memory of that moment, but obviously doesn't want to or wish to talk about it.
No, I don't think she's got any memory of it.
Okay.
And we try to instill in her mind that she has, but all to no avail.
So would you almost call that missing time? Some period of time that's missing in her life that she's
yeah.
not aware of what
Yeah.
happened?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Interesting, isn't that, folks? We've heard that so many times before from other people who have had missing time. So what actually happened after that point in time when she finally came around, and what happened from that moment
Well, when
onwards?
she came around, it was nothing happened. Like, I enjoyed that show,
Yep.
and I wondered what she was talking about. I enjoyed that show. It was good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my thoughts were my own,
Mhm.
and I let them stay that way.
Okay. So the night just went on as normal
Yeah.
from that point. Stephen's in bed asleep,
Yeah,
and you're sitting there watching TV,
Yeah.
and that was it for then.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was painting Stephen's room,
Yes.
getting Bernadette's room ready. So
Bernadette is Stephen's sister.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
and I don't know what the boys saw. Opposite me, there was a laundry, and there was a big laundry window,
Yep.
and if there had been light, I would have seen it.
Mhm.
Uh,
Oh, so this is at night time then?
yeah,
Yep.
night time again.
Mhm.
It was all night time occurrences.
Yep.
And Stephen's cousin was there, and he got very excited, Stephen's cousin,
Yep.
and Stephen wanted to race out the back door again.
Mhm.
I said, what's going on? I said, no. But they could see light from outside.
This is the two boys, so
Yeah.
Stephen and his cousin.
I couldn't see anything. I couldn't see anything abnormal.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so it was all just
But
all dark
that-
outside.
But the two boys got so excited. In fact, his cousin took 2 steps back and into the kitchen, so I couldn't see
So
him.
he got pretty scared about the
Yeah.
whole event. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
He was scared with us.
Yep. First experience, I suppose, where Stephen, this
Ah.
is like maybe the second experience he's had. So.
Yeah. And I got down off the trestle I was on, and I stopped Stephen from going out in the backyard. I
Yeah.
said, "There's nothing there, Steve."
And what was Stephen saying?
But he was just very excited. He wanted to go out in the back.
Okay.
Oh, I said, "No." I said, "Don't be so silly."
So there you are, just to get it right. You're there painting Stephen's room.
Yeah.
On a trestle.
Yeah.
And Stephen's there with his cousin.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, they're seeing all these lights outside
Yeah.
and wanting to go out, and you're saying, "What for? There's nothing there."
Exactly.
Mm.
And that sort of put paid to that.
So they didn't go outside then.
No, they didn't go outside.
Okay.
Um,
Now, there's been other events, obviously, that have occurred in your life that you wanted to talk about today.
well, after we got Stephen's bungalow up, and
Now, Stephen was living in like an outhouse at the time, wasn't he? Like at the back end of the house was really just like an
Yeah.
add-on.
yeah,
And let's just explain for the audience. There's a door at the back in his bedroom that goes to the backyard.
that's right.
That's right. So, and then there's another door in that bedroom that leads into the house.
That's right.
So to get to the backyard, you've virtually got to go through his bedroom to get out to the
You've got
backyard.
to go over the backyard. yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Another experience was after Stephen's bungalow had been built,
Yep.
and he'd been residing there for what, a few months
A few months or so. Yep.
or whatever. The Star Wars craze came in.
Okay, so about 1977-ish.
Yeah, and so Stephen got all these models,
Mm-hmm.
and we used to get out there and put these models together.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds like fun.
And then someone bought him a camera and he destroyed them all. But I digress. No, I said to Steve, I said, no, come on, mate. It's around about 9:15. You don't kiss Mum and
Hop
say
off to
goodnight.
bed. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like most young kids, they don't want to go to bed that time of night too. They don't want to stay up longer. So
Yeah, but it was getting later.
It was getting later and later.
Yeah, he was going to bed. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, we were going to the house, and all of a sudden, the backyard filled with white light. Where the white light came from, we have no idea. But Stephen stopped about 3 paving stones from the back door, and looked up. His mouth was hanging open.
So he was in the backyard? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
So that told me that there was no glare.
Because he could stare at it.
He could stare at it.
Yep.
And I thought, what the is going on?
Mm. So where were you at this time? You were just somewhere in the house? Or?
I had just gone in the back door.
Okay.
No, the back door, no light was coming through the louver windows.
Yep. So there's louver windows in the back door?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a black square.
Okay.
Where I was standing.
Yep.
And I went out and I put my hand on Stephen's shoulders and I said, "You okay?" And slowly he nodded his head, and the white light faded.
There was no noise?
No noise.
Just dead
Nothing.
quiet. Mm.
Nothing. I wish there had been noise.
Any strange smells at the time?
No.
Nothing
no
like nothing
smells.
out of the ordinary.
But Stephen saw things that I didn't see.
Yeah. So
Um,
similar to last time, really.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Oh, he saw things that I didn't see.
Yeah.
Anyway, we both sat down on the back step,
Mm-hmm.
on the concrete back step, and it dimmed and then it went dark.
Yep.
And I said, "You right?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Listen, you whip around that side of the house, I'll whip around this side of the house." And we did.
Mm-hmm.
And saw nothing, of course.
Mm. Did you expect to see something?
I didn't know.
But you've obviously felt, to a point, threatened that there
Yeah.
could be something there.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
And nothing. All we could see was Mr. Next Door's lights on,
Mm-hmm.
but we couldn't see him while the white light was shining.
Yep.
And the white light shone only in our yard.
So it was, the light was contained.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was no reflection off that light going over the fence or.
No, nothing.
Yeah.
And it was the most weird experience, and I still am at pains to explain it.
Mm.
There was, I don't know.
So where was your wife at that time? She was somewhere in the house?
Yeah, she was indoors.
She wasn't aware of what was going on, obviously.
She would have been in the lounge room.
Yep.
Watching TV.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one would have thought that if we were out there that long, that she'd have made an entrance of some sort.
Find out where you are, what's going on. So how long did this?
We don't know.
So you got no idea how long you were out there for?
We don't know. We don't know. Maybe doing it. My wife was blocked, or
she clearly didn't think there was anything wrong because she didn't come looking.
No.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. So I mean, that could have been because it was only a short time, but it could also be for a lot of other reasons too.
Yeah. It could have been for a short time, but we sort of think that perhaps that's not right.
Yeah, because of the strangeness of it.
Yeah, perhaps. You know? And
does it upset you to think about it now? Like when you reflect on what happened, does it have an emotional?
No, I think about it a lot.
Yeah.
And Stephen thinks about it a lot. In fact, you know, Stephen's been to a hypnotherapist, and I think I'm right in saying hypnotherapist. And they dragged out more information from him.
Yep.
And he obviously saw more than I did. Yeah,
so emotionally he's probably way more affected in some ways. For you, I guess it's more of a case of what was it? What had actually happened? It's that confusion of not knowing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Stephen and I have spoken since, many times, and I sort of thought, well, you know, perhaps time stopped for a little while.
Yep.
I don't know if you can understand that.
Sometimes that does happen.
As we have said between us,
Mm-hmm.
Now perhaps we were blocked from realising just how long it was.
So there could have been a whole period of time there that things had happened, but that's been erased from your memory, so you won't remember it.
Indeed.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's similar to missing time once again.
Yeah.
It's quite possible that a whole bunch of things have happened there, but you don't know what they are because, for some reason, that's not in your memory bank anymore.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Very good. So, was there any other events or? I'm testing your memory now.
No, there was one where my father died.
Okay.
And we took off to Barmera. That's my sister, my brother and I.
That's up in the country somewhere, or?
Just over the border of South Australia.
Okay, yep.
That's where he knew he was going to take Mum for her last holiday.
Yes, yep.
And that's where he passed away.
Okay.
I remember going to sleep. Now I'll qualify that. I wasn't asleep. No, I'll swear that to this day. And have. But Dad was standing at the end of the bed.
Yep.
He was dressed in, and all white. I don't know whether it was a white suit or um, what sheet or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
But he was dressed
Something white.
all neatly in white. And he spoke to me.
So this is after he passed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
And I can hear my brother breathing very, very heavily as though he was about to snore.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "It's going to be okay."
He said that to you.
Yeah, he said that to me.
Mm-hmm.
And slowly he disappeared.
Yep.
And
how did that make you feel?
uh,
Relieved? Maybe?
No, it made me think of other experiences I've had.
Okay.
Yeah. Or
So
the other-
maybe possibly you feel like they might have been connected in some way. Yeah, okay.
I just didn't know.
Hmm. Hmm. And what about now? How do you feel about life in general now for you?
Oh, life in general. Life's good.
Yep.
Uh,
The beautiful grounds around here to
Oh.
wander around and
Fantastic grounds. But I will never erase from my memory those
events.
those occurrences. No,
Mm.
I never ever will.
Mm.
Especially the backyard one. That was really, really something.
Yep. So let's just digress a little bit back to the first couple of events that had happened where you were very confused about what happened, and then come forward maybe a week or two after the event had happened. What was that like by that stage? Because it would have been deep in your mind about what had happened, and you would have been tossing that over, thinking about it. So just build that, or give us a picture of what that looked like.
I was mulling it over
Yep.
a lot as to whether I should talk to my wife about it
Yep.
or not.
Mm-hmm.
I chose not to.
Okay.
And I chose correctly because as Stephen told me years later that he put the same thing to Mum and or to his mother, and she got very upset.
So I guess at that point you thought, this is not a good idea, I won't
Yeah.
be asking any questions.
Yeah.
And it was never talked about with Mum again?
No.
Okay. So this is obviously back in the mid to late 1970s, so it's a long time ago
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
But it clearly was such a big event, or events, that it's still deep in your mind now to think about these matters and what has happened, and with Stephen, and Stephen's obviously
Yeah.
tried to find his own answers about what had happened as well. So,
That's right. No, very deep in my mind.
yeah.
And I don't try to forget them.
Yep. You want to remain that, keep
Yeah.
that memory there.
I want to keep
And
those memories there.
how many other people have you ever discussed this with, or is it just something that you've not felt comfortable to do?
Oh, it's not something that I really feel comfortable talking about.
Yep. Is it because of
Until now, I don't. Yeah, I don't really care.
Yeah.
Yeah, who's aware?
Yep. Well, it's probably the ridicule
Because
factor.
yeah, because I know it happened.
Yeah. And that's a good thing, Doug. That's a good thing that you knew that it did happen,
Yeah.
and that's your treasure, that's your memory to have, and it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. That's the whole point of it.
That's right. Yeah. No, I don't want to forget.
Very good. Well, there you go, folks. So, very, very interesting story. We're going to interview Stephen as well, so we'll give you a different perspective of what actually happened during these events. So we'll interview Stephen, and you can piece it all together and listen to what has to be said. So we'll talk to you shortly.
We're talking to Sid this morning. Now, Sid has an interesting story to tell, which is a backup to a story that happened in a suburban house in Heidelberg in Melbourne many years ago in the mid-70s, and it's remembered by a few family members, and Sid is one of the people who was there when it happened, and he remembers an unusual reaction to what was going on, so which is unusual for him as a witness to something. So Sid, you were there at the house on the night, and you were there painting a room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as I said, I experienced a bright light, which I thought may have been a helicopter or something flying by. But I felt a lot of warmth and a really bright light, and I felt threatened by it and quite scared. Yeah.
Okay, well that's interesting, because we do hear a lot of cases of very bright lights, like a whole backyard can light up like daytime, and it's in the middle of the night, that sort of thing, which would come as a surprise.
Yeah, definitely.
But I haven't heard anybody say before that they could feel any heat, which is quite interesting.
Yeah.
And so, do you think there was the combination of the surprise and seeing that was unnerving?
It could have been. It's a lot of years ago, but I felt, I definitely, whether that was the scaredness, feeling warm or, I got no idea. But I was scared enough to go to the window, look out the window and see extremely bright, but not, I weren't game enough to go out and see what was outside at the time.
So how could you describe it? Was it like, say for instance, if a big floodlight was lighting up the backyard or something?
Like a big floodlight or police light sort of thing.
Okay.
And you just, I couldn't work it out, but we're talking seconds that this happened, and then just felt really threatened by it.
What happened after that? After you felt, did the light just go off or fade away, or? Can you remember?
When I went to the window, the light was still there. I didn't want to go outside, and I think I may have mentioned to Steve, who's my nephew, what was that or what is that?
Okay.
Now, I'm a lot older than Steve. I think Steve was game enough to go outside and have a look.
Okay.
But I weren't. Which is...
So you wouldn't go outside, but Steve went out to have a look?
Yeah, I think he may have went out with his dad and had a look. It's a long time ago, and so.
Can you just cut for a sec? Sorry, I've got a frog in my throat. So I kind of assume you were somewhere else in the house before this had happened, like probably watching TV or something like that. Or
well, I was painting a room. So
you're painting a room.
Yeah.
And then for some reason you went out to the back.
The reason I went out to the back room was because of this bright light that I had experienced. So you could see it coming in where you were. It was just an extremely bright light.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and as I said, I was just, I don't know, just felt very threatened by it.
Yeah, okay. It's unusual to feel threatened by a bright light.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Did you notice any unusual sound or anything when this light was happening?
No sound.
No noises
at all.
or anything?
No
Okay.
sound at all. Yeah.
Interesting. So there are many cases where things are hovering over somebody's house.
Yeah.
And they can't hear any sound.
Yeah.
When you normally can hear sounds.
Yeah.
And there are others where they say, well, they report hearing a humming sound or something.
Yeah.
But you don't remember any sound?
I don't,
So,
and it is a long time ago, but
Mm.
I definitely don't remember sounds. Yeah.
Okay. So when you went to that back room, you could see the whole backyard was alight with this bright
When
light.
I looked out the window, I could see it was extremely bright, and as I said, I felt the light. I probably felt light all around me. So it's it's hard to explain.
And then you and Steve and Doug went into the backyard to see what it was.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
I think I may have mentioned to Steve or Doug, I'm not sure, that what is that, you know, and and so that's sort of where
Do you remember any reply? What they?
Well, I remember I walked to the back
reaction?
door after they had gone out.
Okay, so you're likely going to follow them out.
No, let them go. I was
You weren't going any further.
As I said, it was really unusual because I think if there was another situation, I'd be the first one out, and they'd be following. So very unusual.
Okay,
yeah.
so something really rattled you. So
Something
you didn't want to
rattled
go
me.
out.
Yeah, definitely.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
It must have been some like a sixth sense or something you had.
I
You
got
just
no
felt
idea,
danger
but I just
or-
know I felt danger. I never felt that danger before.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
So,
And just a bright light.
yeah. So, yeah.
Do you remember how long this situation went for, and how long you felt upset or anything?
Not a long time, like we're talking minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, it certainly didn't go for long.
All right.
Yeah.
So, and then you asked Steve, what's that? Or
Yeah,
something?
I think I may have mentioned what is that because they obviously experienced it as well. They went outside, I think, and I went towards the back door and sort of poked my head out, but when I looked out, there was nothing there. Yeah,
So, you mean the light had gone there?
the light had gone.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I guess you probably would have talked about it together afterwards and gone, well, heck, what was that?
Yeah, I really don't remember saying a real lot on it because I just felt really unusual and threatened by it. Yeah.
Okay. So everyone just clammed up after that, possibly, or
yeah, look, I can't remember a lot on it.
Again,
yeah.
it was so long ago.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting event. To feel so threatened just by a very, very bright light,
Yeah.
it's pretty unusual.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if there's anything hidden in the memories, it's like you can't remember much. I wonder if there's anything else that could have been behind it.
Just out of the blue, it happened, and I found it unusual. That's I mean, to this day, I still don't know what it was. And,
all right. Well, the police helicopter has a 1 million candle power spotlight.
Yeah.
They didn't have that in the 70s. They didn't have the helicopter or the spotlight in the 70s.
Okay.
Didn't come till like the late 80s.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
But you would have heard that. You would have thought,
That's
there's
right.
a helicopter.
And that was the thing. It was an eerie feeling, but I'm not putting you're not putting words in my head, but the quietness is what I probably experienced with it, and I think that gave it that eerie feeling.
I wonder if that was triggering in your mind. You might have had some previous thing years ago that might have happened before that you were subconsciously remembering, and it might be an ongoing thing. It might not be just a single event.
Yeah.
But this might be the only one you remember.
Yeah.
Possibly. I'm just saying it's a
Yeah.
possibility.
I mean, look.
Well, why would you be scared otherwise?
Yeah. I suppose over the years, I mean, if I'm being open about it, over the years, I read up on it because I used to be puzzled by it, but
Okay.
I read up on astral travel and all that sort of stuff,
Oh,
so
okay.
I experienced a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I no longer have that, and I had that for a number of years where, floating sensations and, and you don't talk about these things because people think you're crazy.
Well, it's interesting that people would think you're crazy. You were talking about astral travel, but then again, the people that have written about that sort of thing happening, pretty sophisticated and intelligent, fully educated.
Yeah.
people
When
have
I
written about
read
that.
up on that, that's the reason I looked into it, because I'm so clear of what happens with that. And I was interested to try finding out what's going on, and that when I read a book on it, I thought, wow, this is exactly what is happening to me. You know? So yeah, but the only other experience I had, but I think that was after that, or it definitely was after seeing that light, is I travelled across the Nullarbor in Western Australia. It was a thunderstormy night, lightning, a lot of lightning around, and we went through a town, cannot remember the town at all, that I went through. And we were heading back to Melbourne from Western Australia, and I experienced bright lights out in paddocks, probably, I don't know, it seemed to go for quite a lot of kilometres, and I was trying to work out what is that. You know, is it farming sheds, is with lights on, what is it? Now, as it happened, we went to Adelaide, into Adelaide the next day. We arrived in Adelaide, and we had made a decision to go back to Western Australia, which sounds unusual.
But you did.
And we went back to Western Australia to this town that we went through. And there wasn't a shed or the farm or anything in sight, and so it made me really think, wow, what was that night?
What could it have been?
Yeah.
Did it seem like I guess you couldn't really determine how far it was. So size, you wouldn't be able to determine
I couldn't
the size of it.
see anything but bright lights, and it just had me really puzzled.
Because there was nothing there when you went back.
Because there was nothing there at all for kilometres and kilometres, and we would have drove. It's hard for me to remember, but there may have been 6-7k of this, of just bright lights, and out in these what I thought was farming paddocks. But after when I went back in daylight, I realised that there was nothing in this place at all.
No farms or
no farms, no nothing.
So
what I was experiencing was probably hard to know exactly with distances, but it felt like it was only, you know, half a kilometre away, or 600-800 metres away. You know? It didn't feel a long way away anyway.
This is the perennial problem with the UFO sighting.
And they would be there, it would be there, and then it would be gone, and then all of a sudden another light would be there, and it'd be gone.
And then
it just had me totally puzzled.
You've heard of the Min lights? I wonder if it was something like that. Min lights. Have you heard of those?
No, I haven't.
You haven't heard of Min lights?
No.
Okay. Well, a lot of people out in the outback and the Aboriginals have this story, these legendary Min lights. These lights appear and then they go, and they appear and they go. So it sort of fits into that category, but what it was, we don't know. But
no idea.
It sounds like Min lights to me.
But that is exact, like clear as a day. And you know, I was with my wife and kids and everything on that night, and so it felt. It didn't feel weird. The lightning was a bit frightening because it was a real lightning thunderstorm. But and we were travelling through it. I didn't know whether to stop or keep going because it was that bad.
Okay.
But it was always on the right-hand side, like as we're heading back towards Adelaide Way, or we're miles away from Adelaide, but heading back that way. So it was on my right the whole time, those lights. And they would appear and go.
So they really unusual. Over the sea, perhaps?
Something.
Was it?
I guess it could. Well, no, it wouldn't have been, because when we went back, it was all just acres and acres of nothing. So there was no, whether there was ocean behind there on the left.
Oh, you're a long way in from the edge, aren't you?
Oh, yeah, a long way.
Roads,
a long way in. So really unusual, that one. But as I said, I'm not saying what they were because I have no idea.
Well, you wouldn't be the first person to describe something very unusual happening in that area. In fact, that's the exact location what you're describing. Where another famous Australian case happened, the Knowles case. Where these people were driving back from WA, coming across the Nullarbor, and saw this very bright light just over the road, and it chased them, and they got very frightened. And they say that their car was lifted up off the road by this light, and then it let go, and their car dropped to the ground with them in it. There was a whole family, and even the family dog in the car. They were terrified. They ended up pulling into the service station at Mundrabilla, as white as ghosts. That
I
happened
wish
in the
I
late
knew.
80s.
I wish I knew the name of the town.
Okay.
But I honestly don't, because it wasn't so. But I do know when we travelled back, it was really unusual, because I thought, oh, nothing's normally out there in the dark, and I'm thinking that's really unusual. Bright light, disappear, and we're going for kilometres, another bright light, and, you know, same light all the time. That was the unusual thing about it. But
was there anything? How could you describe? You said it was a bright light. Any particular colour or anything, or did it just seem like a normal?
No, it didn't seem like a normal light. It definitely was unusual. I'm not sure if it was whitish or yellowish light, but definitely, yeah. I guess if you wanted to say beaming light, it was a beaming light down on the ground, but it's not like it lit up. It's not like it lit up what was around it.
Okay. Like a directed light.
A
into
directed
a small
light,
area.
but not where what you could say, well, oh yeah, that's a tree there, or it's lighting it up. Yeah, I can't explain it. Yeah.
Okay, but it was a bright light, and it was in a confined area.
Oh, definitely. And then as I'm driving, you know, I'm looking, gee, I kept thinking farm sheds or farm houses. Thinking, well, it has to be, and I think I might have been a bit puzzled why, because I thought, oh, I didn't think anything was out there.
Right.
But the next day when I come back in daylight, as I said, we got to Adelaide that night, and we decided to head back to Western Australia. So we had left Western Australia, headed so.
It's a long drive.
Oh, it was.
To turn around and go straight back.
It was, yeah.
It
Very
wasn't
unusual.
anything to keep you in Adelaide.
No, we were heading back to Melbourne, but we decided, I had gone over there for work, and it wasn't quite working out, and I thought maybe I needed to give it a bit longer, so I decided to turn back, and it was a big decision, because I had the family, and so a massive decision to do something like that. And I was keen to, you know, I drove all night and basically had to sleep for maybe half an hour, and went back again the next day.
So what do you know what year it was when this happened, or roughly what decade or something?
I don't
know.
I'm thinking it must have been about 30 years ago. Yeah.
So in the early 80s?
So, yeah.
Something like that, or?
I mean, I could,
late
if
80s.
I researched, I'd know it. I'd be able to just
work
get
it out
photos and be able to find out exactly. Because my kids were very young at the time.
If it was 30 years, it was around the same time that the Knowles happened. So who knows? Yeah.
But look, that is, you know, as I said, I can't explain any of it, and I'm not trying to make a story that didn't exist. It's because even I can't explain those couple of little things, but I found it really unusual, and always have, that never been able to. And as I said, with the other case, I've never been. You know, I'm not a guy that gets scared of anything.
Well, I was just thinking about that, an idea just occurred to me. When you were going along the road and you saw those lights, they were a long way away. Yeah. So there's no reason to have any fear at that point.
No, I weren't scared, definitely, because I kept thinking buildings, factories, or farms, really not.
But had it been right above your car, it might have been different.
That would have been
you might have been just as frightened as you were in the house.
Absolutely, and we were really quite scared. It was a really bad thunderstorm, and I to the point where there was nowhere to go. I either had to keep driving, or I didn't know whether to stop, go, and it was quite scary that the thunderstorms that were going on at the time, electrical storms, and it felt like right in it. So it was not a good experience.
Yeah, right.
So
riding through the storm across the desert.
Yeah, and I just thought, keep going, get out of it, keep going, we'll get away from it. But as I said, it was unusual.
Well, thanks, Sid. It was really interesting. Really nice to meet you. And good to hear that. Very good stuff.
Hi folks, and we're back again to tell some more of the story that Doug told earlier in the episode. Today we've got his son Steve here to tell us his side of the events. Hi Steve.
Andrew.
How are you?
Good.
All been going well?
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. So what do you remember about that particular event? Let's go from maybe the beginning, and what led up to it.
Well, we had. I was kind of involved with 3 of them, and they were all at different points in time.
Right. Okay.
So, and they all kind of revolved around when I used to live in the back room of a house in Heidelberg.
Yep.
And it was an add-on. So, you know, in the early days, I think you'd walk out the back door and go to the external bathroom. Mm-hmm. But they added on a room. So
on the back of the edge of the house, sort of thing.
So actually, to get to the back door, you had to go through my house.
And then there's another door to go outside, or?
Yeah, you'd have to walk through my bedroom to get to the back door. And also to go to the bathroom. You had to
popular little spot, wouldn't
it?
Yeah.
So to go to the laundry and the back door, you had to go through my room.
Okay.
So I had a big bay window, and
yep.
And eventually my folks built a bungalow.
So did the bay window look out into the backyard or off to the side? Out to the back?
Backyard, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And they eventually built a bungalow for me. Mm-hmm. So at the point where I had the back room of the house as a bedroom and the bungalow is when these 3 things kind of took place.
Okay.
You know, so,
yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. So the first thing, let's talk about the very first event. Where was you at the time when that first started to happen?
Well, I woke up one night in the back room, mm-hmm. and the room was full of light. I had a big kind of translucent kind of blind.
What sort of time frame were we talking about? Midnight or later? Or?
My parents were still up, so I woke up with my room pulsing with light, and I lifted the blind. And
so probably about 10 or 11 or something like that.
Possibly, yeah. It might have been a little earlier. But
and how old were you at this point in time?
I don't know. I reckon I was about somewhere between 14 and 16.
Okay, so you were a teenager.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I ran into the lounge room, and I was actually similar to Sid. I was panicked. I was crying.
Okay.
And I just had this kind of terror and fear.
So the light was a fearful light?
Yeah.
Did it sense fear into you when you?
Yeah, but it was kind of you look back now and you go, well, it's kind of irrational because it was just a light.
Yeah.
But I always kind of look at it as some weird, I call it like a psychic terror. It's something that I shouldn't have been necessarily frightened of, but I really got kind of panicked. It was almost like my subconscious was processing stuff that my conscious didn't know about, So it was just a real irrational.
Is this because you didn't understand what it was, maybe?
I don't know. No, I kind of went beyond that. The fear, it wasn't a normal fear, It was like it's very hard to explain. I kind of look back now and go, well, I shouldn't have really been as spooked as I was, particularly.
But we can always be rational when we look back on things. Yeah. So at the time, it's a different story.
Yeah. Anyway, I ended up in tears and I jumped up. I looked out the backyard, so the whole backyard's full of, it was kind of crisscrossing, pulsing light. It was very bright.
So Mum and Dad were in the lounge room at this point?
Yeah, I ran inside in tears and I was crying and told them to come out and look. And my mum didn't, usually my mum would come out and she didn't come out. She was sort of the matriarch of the family because my dad was always so sick.
Yep.
So she usually would step up and do whatever it took to settle the kids. Mm-hmm. So for me to be in tears, but for her to stay there and my dad to take me back out is kind of odd in itself. Mm-hmm. So he took me out, and the room was the room was pulsing, but the real bright light was out.
So when you say out, you mean outside?
Outside, yeah, in the backyard. So we went across to the laundry, because that was off my bedroom as well, and we looked out and it was still lit. So
the laundry was a part of your bedroom?
Yeah, it was off my bedroom.
Okay. So it was all part of the add-on to the back of the house?
Yeah. Okay. And it was still lit, and we went back around again to my room and opened the back door, and that was still lit.
So when you went outside, did you look up?
We didn't go outside. I wanted to go outside and my dad grabbed me and he wouldn't let me out.
Yep.
And he said later the hairs on the back of his neck were like...
So he was obviously fearful too then?
Yeah. And then I don't remember too much what happened after that. I just remember being put back into my bed, and I remember him saying to me, because I was so
worked
disturbed,
up.
he said to me, what's wrong? But he said it in a way as if you know, what's
Kind of like he
the
had
matter
no
with
idea.
you? Yeah. And I kind of looked at him as if,
What are you talking about?
and anyway, so he put me to bed, and that's really the last I remember of the experience.
Did it take you a while to get back to sleep? And
Yeah.
or was it a bit of a broken sleep all night?
I
from
just
that
don't
point?
remember. I can't.
Okay.
I mean, it's so long ago.
Yeah.
I remember, you know, we were talking about it up to a week later, and I know my dad was scanning the newspapers.
Yeah. So
A few
before
days after. But
I was just going to say, before your dad put you back to bed, the light had obviously gone by that point.
well, I don't remember it going.
Okay.
There's a gap in my memory of the back door open, wanting to go out, him not letting me, and then I remember kind of being put in the bed.
So from the very first moment that you saw the light, so going and getting your dad, going to bed, do you know how long that time frame would have been?
Look, it would have. I think, from my memory, it would have just been a couple of minutes. I really ran in, terrified, to the
Okay.
lounge room. They were
Yep.
watching TV.
Yep.
And then he brought me back out, and the light was still on.
Yeah.
I mean, in his telling of it, he put me to bed, went back inside, and he said my mother was just. He thought she was just staring at the TV.
Yeah.
And he said as he went into the lounge room, he realised she was staring at the wall blankly. He said she wasn't blinking, and it took, I think, 10, 15 minutes for her to start blinking again. He sat down beside her and
Like she was in a
took her
trance
hand.
or something. Yeah.
So he took her hand, and he said it was a good period of time before she blinked, and then just suddenly said, "Oh, that was a good TV show." I was like, "Yeah."
So that was after you'd been put back to
That's
bed.
that. Yeah. So I, you know, that's his kind of memory of it.
So the next day when you woke up in the morning
Yeah.
and you got up, the first thing in your mind was probably that event, I would imagine.
It's possible, but you know, with all these three big events, something weird happens where the next day or the long-term memory of it gets weirdly fuzzy and compressed, and it takes little triggers to unlock what had happened, and then of course you recall it and it all just kind of comes back. But
Yeah.
it's very weird the way the long-term, not so much the short-term memory, but the long-term memory of it is weirdly
Distorted.
Yeah.
So the second event, you said there was 3 events, so the second event, what was the time frame between the first event and the second event?
This second event, the bungalow was up. So the second event was the bungalow had been built for me now and is in the backyard. So I moved from the back room of the house to the bungalow, and I used to do lots of animation and film stuff, and it was night time, and we were working on a little animation model, and my dad said, "Look, let's just kind of call it a night."
So he was with you in the bungalow.
Yeah.
So this is after you've moved out of the add-on to the back, and now you're in the bungalow.
Yeah.
Okay. So there'll be a fair bit of time between those two then.
Yeah, but well, it could be, and I don't know that first event. I just
I'm
don't
just
know
thinking
when.
how long it would have taken to build the bungalow. And
Yeah.
probably would have been a fair while before. What I'm saying is it wasn't the next day.
No. Again, it could have been a year or two.
Yeah.
I just can't remember.
Yeah.
But we left the bungalow, so we walked across
Yeah.
to go to the back, to go into the house. So
Yeah.
you've got to cross through the backyard.
Okay.
There was little kind of cobblestones,
Yep.
little pavers that they'd put down. And you'd go in and wash up, and then you go to kind of come back out and go to bed. So I was halfway across towards the house. It's not actually a big distance, but so he got up to the back door and went inside, or up into the back room.
Yeah, took the first step up in. Yeah.
But this big bright light beamed down on me. So in the middle of the backyard, like a really bright light, and it stopped me dead in my tracks.
When you say bright light, did it force you to squint?
I don't remember, but I remember my dad saying that what he found weird is that I wasn't squinting. I was looking at it, but I wasn't.
So you could literally look up and look at it, and it wouldn't affect you.
Well, but I don't remember necessarily squinting or not squinting.
But your dad said that was the situation.
Yeah.
So he was watching you from inside, looking out. Yeah.
And where it got really weird is that I couldn't move my legs, and he and you know, when something's really, really bright, your iris kind of shuts down.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't quite see beyond the light.
Too
if that makes any sense.
disorientated. Yeah.
Well, so bright that everything, I think, beyond that kind of just
Didn't
dark,
exist.
seemed to be
Yeah.
darker, you know.
Yeah.
So, but I remember talking to him, and I was panicked. And
Through the door, sort of thing.
Yeah, he's up near the door. He wouldn't come down though, and I'm wondering whether he's like something's happened with his legs. But he kept saying, "I'm right here, pal," and he used to say, "Pal." So
Yeah. So you could hear him.
I could hear him, and then so I knew he was there, but he didn't walk down, and I couldn't move. And next thing, we had 3 weird ET kind of creatures walk in. So they came in from the right, and they came,
So they came through let's call it the dark, into the light.
yeah, and they're outside. So
Yeah.
they walked along what would have been the wall where my old bedroom.
Can you
was.
describe them for us?
They weren't they weren't those almond-shaped eye things. They were kind of very insect. They're very fleshy, skinny, but a little larger.
Like a grasshopper-y type of thing.
Something like that. They weren't those other
Praying
things
mantises type of
like
thing.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and I remember very fleshy and baggy kind of skin.
And walking on 2 legs, sort of thing.
I can't remember. I
Yeah.
just don't
Any
know.
colour? Do you remember?
I just
colour?
remember a pinky, fleshy kind
Okay.
of colour. I don't
Wow.
remember much more beyond that.
Yeah.
And then they came between us,
Mm-hmm.
between myself and the back door, where my dad's just standing at the top of the back door,
Okay.
a few steps to go.
They're fairly close.
They were very close, yeah, very close. And next thing, I don't remember anything after that. Next thing we were both sitting on the back step of the door,
Mm.
and there was a gully trap, with a tap and a gully trap
Yep,
there as well.
yep.
So they had the gully trap and we had the back step.
Yep.
And I think I was sitting on the gully trap,
Mm.
and I think my dad was on the step. And I remember just sitting there. It's just like I don't remember anything.
Do you remember how that all happened? It just
No.
was there. Like,
And I remember I was really confused, and I was actually pretty terrified again.
so when these creatures basically came between you and your dad,
Yeah.
did you and your dad talk to each other about the fact that these things were there, or no words were
I
exchanged?
don't remember
Don't
that.
remember?
I don't know. Yeah,
So-
I remember initially asking where he is because
Mhm.
I couldn't see him.
Mm.
Because the light, you know, when there's really bright
Yeah.
light,
Yeah.
it's like being on a stage, you know, and if you've ever been up on a theatre stage and
You
the
can't
lights
see
are in
out.
your eyes,
Yeah, and
you
it's just
can't
dark.
see the
isn't it?
audience.
Yeah.
It was like that.
Okay.
So I could hear him, and he was saying, "I'm right here."
Yeah, yeah.
But he didn't come
Yeah.
to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then after these creatures, whatever they were, appeared,
Mm.
the next thing is we're just sitting on the
So,
step.
so you were sitting on the step. He was sitting on the step too.
Yeah, he's from my
Beside
memory.
you,
He
sort of
was,
thing?
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember we were side by side, and I was just really, I was fearful. I wasn't crying, but I was just really confused. I felt almost like occasionally I've hit my head over the ears, and you get a bit of concussion.
Yeah.
I felt almost a little kind of
Almost dizzy, sort of.
concussed,
Really?
as if I was just.
Yeah, not quite right.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
put it
yeah.
that way. Yeah.
And then my dad said, then he got up and he said, "You look around one side of the house, and I'll look around the other." So the light's gone on by that point. But
Yeah.
It's just.
So there's been some missing time there. It's like somebody's just cut the snippet of time out, and you have no idea how you got to the step, but you did.
Yeah.
So there's something happening there between.
Well, I don't.
You don't remember. Yeah.
Don't remember anything.
So
about
what
it.
happened after when he said go look around the house?
Well, I remember he wanted me to look around the left side, the right side of the house.
Yeah.
Where there's a garage there now, but at the time I don't think there was no garage there at all.
Yeah.
And he said, and I'll look around the other side.
Mm.
And I remember thinking, don't leave me alone, you know. So he took off, and I really reluctantly went around.
Yeah.
The
Braved up.
the one side,
Yeah.
and very quickly had a look.
Mm.
Except at that point, I remember not sure what I was looking for. I was just confused, you know.
Mm.
But I remember I very quickly looked, and then I went around the other side of the house
Mm-hmm.
where he was, and he was poking around around it. And it was very dark around both sides.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he looked there, and then he went to the garden shed. We had an old garden shed there at the time, which they ended up ripping down. I think they put like a barbecue in its place.
Right. Okay.
And I remember he opened up the garden shed, and he's starting to look around in there.
Yeah. And of course it's pitch black. It's dark and.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And then after the garden shed, that's kind of the last I remember of that particular event. I can't really remember much more beyond.
Do you remember
beyond that.
the next day? Anything about that?
No.
Nothing.
But he did tell me that a week later I was still quite traumatised by the whole thing, and I was asking questions about it, but I don't remember.
So everything that you've just told about that story, you did remember the next day onwards, or this is sort of like come back to you since in the future, sort of?
Well, we ended up becoming kind of estranged for various reasons. You know, my folks split up, and
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
we didn't talk for many years, and eventually. What really stuck with me was the one where I woke up in my bed at night and the room was lit.
Well, let's talk about that's the third event, yeah?
No, that was the first one.
That was
I
the first
chatted
one,
about.
okay.
But I ended up getting my sisters to make contact because they were in contact with him, and I wanted them just to. I didn't want to get involved, and I just said, "Look, can you just get him to write an account of that?"
So,
But what was weird is the account that came back
yeah,
was the second account.
okay,
And I remember when I got it, I was reading it,
yeah,
and I was driving home from my sister's house once
Yeah.
they'd given it to me, and I had to pull over because I suddenly realised that the two accounts
well, basically the same thing.
were different. You know, the one
Oh,
I had
right.
remembered was the back room,
Yeah, okay,
and I'd remembered the second one I just told you.
Mm.
I'd kind of gone blank on,
yeah,
and it wasn't until I saw him write it down that I
Yeah.
went, "Oh yeah."
yeah. So it's all clicked into place
Yeah,
then.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And the same thing with the one that Sid remembers with the where they were painting my back room,
Yeah.
where I was about to move in, you know, the third event.
Because your
Again,
sister
you know,
was going to move into your room and you were going to move into the bungalow.
yeah.
Mm.
So that was the third one that happened.
Where was your sister on that night?
I don't know. I know we were painting the room, and you know, it's odd little memories you get because I remember, you know, my dad was so sick with epilepsy
Mm.
that I was very hyper vigilant because, you know, we would always be ready to catch him if he fell.
Yeah.
Particularly me, you know, and
Mm.
he'd always be on edge.
She'd be on the alert
Always,
all the time.
always.
Yeah. Mm.
And I always remember that event, you know, when we were
Yeah.
painting the room. It's funny what sticks in your head because I remember when we were rolling, painting it, we had these big long sticks to paint.
Mm.
And I always remember being thankful we had the long sticks because it meant that he wasn't up on a ladder.
Yeah.
It's funny what you remember, but I remember that because I thought if he was up on a ladder he'd fall.
Yeah.
I remember my bed was covered with plastic.
I can relate to this. My stepsister had epilepsy, so we used to have the same sort of thing where you'd be on alert and then all of a sudden you'd have to get her on the floor and then put a spoon in her mouth and all this sort of stuff to stop her, you know, biting her tongue and all that sort of business. But
Well, he used to just kind of fall, you know, he'd literally go over and fall through anything and everything.
Yeah.
So I remember that painting that room because I remember being relieved that the paint rollers were on long sticks.
Yeah. That was a good thing.
Yeah. So we were painting the room. Again, it's hazy because it's so long ago, but I remember the entire room was just filling with light. It was myself.
Was this was still in the 70s when this?
Yeah, so this would have been around the time the bungalow probably was almost, if not built.
Yeah.
You know, so
Late
I may
70s,
have
I
already
guess.
been there.
Yeah.
I reckon it's late 70s. Could even be early 80s, possibly. Maybe.
Probably around Star Wars era sort of thing when that first came out. I think that was
Possibly.
78 or something like that.
Yeah, I don't. It's hard. I just don't know. I mean, we could probably track it down. But
And you lived in Heidelberg, correct?
Yeah.
Paint the picture of Heidelberg, what it looked like back in the 70s. What sort of a place was Heidelberg at the time?
Oh, look.
Typical suburban
Oh, it
town?
was pretty rough. I mean, I think, you know, his nickname was Little Chicago, you know, so the 1956 games had been on and, you know, that had finished and I think all the houses they built for the athletes turned into kind of housing commission places.
Okay,
And
yeah.
it was pretty rough. I mean, it was a rough place. I mean, we were in a little court and had very good neighbours. So we were always a bit kind of protected from it. But you know, I had a lot of mates that either ended up in jail or they're OD'd or, you know, it was a rough place.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, you've done well.
Yeah.
You had, when we've talked about this before, you had mentioned that the neighbours recently had mentioned to you that there was lights coming from your property.
Yeah, I ended up at next door neighbours a couple of years back now, and again, I didn't want to. didn't want to put words in their mouth, so I
Yeah.
just said, you know, do you ever remember
Something
lights
strange.
over our house?
Mm.
And the wife had said, I don't, but the husband, who's now passed, she said he did. He came in one night and he said, what are all those lights over the house next door?
Yeah.
And she actually made a point of
Wow.
kind of saying that, which was interesting.
That's really
So-
good. Like, you know, when you look at this particular case, how good it really is, you know, we've got yourself, we've got your dad, Doug, we've got Sid, uncle, and now we've got also neighbours as well that have seen something that has happened
Yeah.
at your property.
Yeah.
So it's quite significant to have so many witnesses for such an event.
Yeah, it's just, you know, I guess it's just trying to put pieces together. You know, I think all of us have just wondered what it is over the years, and I've definitely become a bit obsessed with, I think because of that and a few other little kind of things associated with that.
Mm.
I've definitely ended up with a bit of an obsession, and I think anyone involved with this kind of thing ends up.
It's kind of a bit undeniable when you see it with your own eyes. I think that's the thing with this particular subject is, you know, you can talk about it all you like, but unless you've actually experienced something like you guys have,
Yeah.
it's only at that point that you can't let it go,
Yeah.
and it's always going to be in your mind. I guess you know, some people can let it go to the point of just moving on with their lives, but it's still niggling away in the back somewhere,
Yeah.
and it stays with us. So, has your life changed because of it?
Oh, I think absolutely, it's totally transformed it. You know, I think you end up with a very broader outlook of what the world's about and the universe is about. It's totally changed I mean, I ended up getting involved, you know, and the synchronicity of it. You know, I ended up getting involved with shooting a documentary on it, you know, for Australia, and we went right around Australia, interviewing people
Oz encounters,
that had,
right?
yeah. And you know, I kind of look back at how I got that job, and you know, I was just kind of out of uni.
How did that come about?
It was just weird. It was like through a friend of a friend, and it was such a big documentary for Channel 9, and I mean, I really shouldn't have got it. And
Martin Sachs, I think, was the
he was in it was a
guy,
big
yeah.
doco TV producer, and it was very odd how I got it. I mean, I'm glad I did, but I always look back and thought it was just very weird the way I ended up.
What was your involvement in that particular?
Well, I shot it. I DP'd it. I was the director of photography.
Okay.
The
special effects in that are amazing.
Yeah, well, it was the first piece in Australia where we used VFX with like a moving camera. Up until then, cameras had always been locked whenever they did a visual effect.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was the first one where we were moving. I mean, they've been doing that in the US with things like Jurassic Park, where you'd be using CG, but it was the first big CG moving camera.
I think people tend to forget that how much technology has gone forward just in 20 years.
Yeah.
And we're talking, that was back in what, 90...
That was mid-90s
maybe 96, something like that. So,
yeah.
You know, technology from then to now is so much different. But if you take it back to then, it would have been a difficult thing to do, that sort of thing, I would imagine.
Yeah. And it really opened up things. So I ended up, you know, became friends with Mary Rodwell. I met Mary there, and I met Bill Schroeder there, and you know, a lot of the big players, and so they really broadened my view and kind of reinforced some of the things that I know back then I hadn't been talking about this much. You know, I kept a real lid on my involvement with some of the weirdness, and
that's the thing with this subject, though, isn't it? I mean, it's a bit of a taboo subject to some point because it can affect your standing in community. It can affect you at work because people tend to ridicule a fair bit, and unfortunately that's comes with the territory to some extent. You know, it's just the way it is. But with your work, what you do, is that something that you don't talk about while you're doing filming? Is that something you don't care about?
Look, I don't really care now. I think, look, you know what? If I worked for somebody, like I've got my own businesses and I do my own thing, and I do films, and so it's not like I'm reliant on a boss that if they think I'm a bit nuts,
give you the flick.
I'll give you the flick.
Yeah.
So I don't care.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's a really important message that people kind of understand what's happening. I think it's more than just a superficial UFOs in the sky. I think what goes on is far more detailed and complex than how we kind of understand it.
I think with the Pentagon film coming out at the end of last year, and Louis Elizondo is, you know, he worked for the Pentagon and one thing and another,
Yeah.
and all that's starting to come forward now.
Yeah.
It's been on CNN, it's been on every other station you can imagine, BBC, all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And I think people are starting, especially the media, are starting to sit up and take more notice of it now, which is it's probably a good thing for people like us who, you know, sometimes we feel a bit uncomfortable about talking about some things.
Yeah.
And I would hope that, you know, not too far down in the future that this really comes out and is treated as a proper subject, you know, not just sci-fi sort of thing. But just one other thing I wanted to ask you before we wrap it up is, here we are now, it's a long time after the event. Has there been any other events after those particular events?
Yeah,
Is there something else that you could tell us about?
Oh, look, there's been lots of little things right through the years. I mean, these were the three big ones. I mean, I had one on the Nullarbor Plain as well. I know Sid has.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And from what I can tell, it was probably in a similar area. But we were deliberately out there looking for craft, and we were filming as well. It was part of a documentary I was putting together.
Mm-hmm.
But I saw, you know, and I'm kind of an amateur astronomer, so, you know, I kind of used to looking at the night sky, and there was a great one, you know, out in the Nullarbor Plain. It was a 360-degree, beautiful night.
Pretty dark out
beautiful
there.
night.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing a satellite coming up, and I said to everyone that I was with, the other two people, like, check out that satellite, and we were looking at the satellite, and then I caught another satellite, which was great, and there was like two satellites, which I thought were amazing.
Yeah.
I don't think they would have been much brighter than, you know, they were. It's not like they were
Super bright.
stand
Yeah,
out super
yeah,
bright,
yeah.
but they were just,
You kind of had to look for them.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But what was amazing, they ended up coming together overhead
Oh, wow.
on a, and I remember,
Like a collision course.
and I said to the guys, they're going to kind of collide, and they came together and they stopped at one point
Oh, really?
of light, which it was amazing.
That's
and,
odd. Yeah.
But, you know, I know that's the whole, you know, Ming Ming area, and, you know, it's like,
Yeah.
so I took it that, you know,
It might be
just
something
cut-
along those
something
lines.
along those
Yeah.
lines. But I thought it was really
Yeah.
interesting that it certainly appeared like two satellites, but the fact they stopped and the fact they intersected, you know, well, it's probably a bit more than that. But,
Yeah.
yeah.
So no other things have happened to you in the middle of the night, sort of thing, or?
There was a lot of other. There was another one. There was another two. One morning I got up in Heidelberg again, and I used to meet my mates at the head of the court. We're in a little court, and I remember it was a bit of a cold morning, and I caught up with my mates at the head of the court, and there was a UFO hovering. Gee,
Like at the end of the court, sort of thing.
well, it would have been about 300, 400 metres away, I think. But I remember it was hanging there like a Christmas bauble. It wasn't moving. It wasn't.
So it was round, sort of
It
shape.
was round, and I remember we didn't have the terminology for UFO, so we're looking at it, kind of going, is that a plane? Is it, you know, what is it? And it was just kind of stuck there, you know.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
and we were there for about 5 minutes,
Yeah.
trying to figure out what this thing is. It was, you know, your classic silver kind of, you know, disc. I wouldn't call it a disc, but it was shaped like that.
Yeah, like two saucers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember my mates, they didn't seem to, I remember thinking they didn't seem to care. They just said, oh, look, we're late for school, we've got to go. And I'm like, no, we've got to, you know. So they took off, and I ended up following. I was last.
How big was it?
It's very hard to judge. It was big enough to make out that it was that shape.
Yeah.
It was definitely reflective, but it wasn't moving. I remember that. And we looked at it, and we were there for a good 5.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember as we all left, I kept looking back at it until, you know, we were almost
Around the
another
corner,
half a block away.
Yeah.
I could still spot it until we had to go around the corner, and I lost sight of it because we just had to get to
And of
school.
course, when you got back from school, it's gone, wasn't it?
Yeah.
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 So you mentioned, I think you mentioned before that there was about 8 instances all up that you've had.
Yeah, there was another couple when I was a kid. That's probably not worth talking about because, you know, I'm getting really young now,
Yeah.
and you know, it's absolutely so easy to confuse.
Anything recent?
Recently, yeah, I had one recently a couple of years ago. So I ended up out at a weir out north, just north of Hallam, and I go there just to walk.
Listerfield Lake?
Sorry,
Listerfield Lake?
there was another one on the other side of that.
Okay.
Yeah, so we go out there occasionally just to kind of, we walk in.
Yep.
You can walk in at night. You can't drive in because of the...
Because they lock the gates and things. Yeah.
And they have those little spikes up. So
Oh,
you can walk in, but you can... So we'll quite often we'll walk in and just, you know, walk around the weir and then walk back out.
Yep.
So we had one that appeared, it flew down and then stopped and then it kind of flew off again, which was kind of an interesting thing. But it kind of came in, stopped, and then it took off.
Was it really bright, or was it just?
It was pretty bright.
Light?
It was far away.
Yeah.
It appeared almost like, and I'd never kind of encountered this before, but it appeared almost like an initial. It wasn't a single point of light. It was like a number of little things.
Okay.
I would have almost thought it was a meteor breaking up, but for the fact that it stopped and then it went,
Yeah,
like
meteorites don't do that.
Yeah. If it had just kept going, I would have just dismissed it as like a shooting star or something that had broken up. As
and this was at night time, obviously. Yeah.
But yeah, it stopped. It was there for about, I reckon, a couple of seconds, and then it went the other way. So. But when it went the other way, it did the same thing. It was like a sparkly kind of trail, left trails. I've never heard of something like that before, but so it was a last weird thing. Yeah.
Well, thanks, Steve.
That's okay.
It's been really good.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
So there you go, folks. So you've heard it from the horse's mouth. We've had a few people tell this story, and we'll let you be the judge. And we'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.